Hey, hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us for an Inspired live stream. And let me say this right off the bat. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free, Inspired Tribe. Uh, it feels like Monday, but it's really what, Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday, right? I hope if you are in the United States, or if you're celebrating the United States, I hope you had a great 4th of July. Um, Perhaps some reflection on what that holiday means, what it means to you. We certainly did. Christina and I did a Honey Talks. It's our show on locals yesterday, and we talked about it just in case you want to go check it out on inspired.locals.com. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. Remember that. That's the mantra of the Inspired live stream, and I think it's an important mantra. If you say it often enough, it really permeates your cells and your DNA. That's important. I want to welcome Kay and Ronnie. Good to see you. I'm Crypto. Cheryl, Jermaine Arminas, TNA Plastic. I mean, these names are creative. Francis is here. Kevin is here. Good to see you. Kevin Bailey, good to see you, my friend. Essie is here. It's good. It's so wonderful that you all are tuning in. Well, let's talk about something that was one of the most popular subjects over the last year on our channel. I can't believe the amount of emails, comments, and messages we received over the videos we did on NPCs and backdrop people. So non-player characters and backdrop people. What are they, right? So we're going to go a little bit into what they are and how to deal with those people if they're really people. And it's kind of the controversy that people had. They said I was disrespectful or I was, condescending. And I don't ever mean to be, but when you go into things and you kind of take the emotion out of it, right? And you really examine things and you examine facts, then you come to certain conclusions that you wouldn't come to if you allow yourself to be emotionally guided in that. So this is why I believe that we need to talk about it. So NPCs, for the gamers out there, which I'm not, but gamers told me that's what they're called, non-player characters. Basically, they're characters in a video game that are there kind of like extras in a movie, but they don't really have a role. They're not players. They don't really do anything. It's like the cheering crowd or just, pedestrians walking by. And Dolores Cannon, she was a famous metaphysical spiritual author and she wrote many great books. She talked about and referred to these people as backdrop people. I encourage you to go look it up. She speaks about this here on YouTube and on Rumble. She speaks about this and what they are and what her information on them is. But in a nutshell, you could call them not real people or soulless people. And I would venture to say that what determines if a being is real, a human being is real, is does that human being have a soul, a spirit? If it doesn't have one, it's really a meat suit, right? And this is where people say, well, it's condescending. But well, I've been on this place often enough, and I've been here long enough to, I've had a lot of experience with these meat suits, and they just aren't real people. You don't find any of the real characteristics. Now, is everyone who behaves in a certain way an NPC? No, I don't believe so. There's other factors, contributing factors. There's a heavy programming and mind control that sometimes make people thoughtless, motionless. Yes, I agree. But there is a good portion of the society out there, of the population, that are real NPCs. And these NPCs are sort of like multipliers. They don't have a lot of course, they don't have creative power. They don't have a lot of any kind of force, but in sheer numbers, they have a kind of a force and power. We've seen over the last years. The behavior of some of these NPCs and backdrop people, it's a complete it's like completely programmed and steered from outside of them. There's no intuition, there's no inner guidance. They're basically just yes people. They'll do anything that they're told to do. And again, I know this kind of sounds horrible, but it's the truth. I can't help it. It's the truth. They exist. They're out there. They're kind of everywhere. And we have a phenomenon that we see now, and I believe there's a difference between people who accepted certain medical treatments that are actually spirited people and people that have accepted certain medical treatments that are non-spirited or non-soul people, non-player characters. I believe these are the first ones now, the NPCs who are, I'm sorry to put it that way, they're kind of zombifying. I mean, the things that we're observing, that we're seeing out there are just, I mean, they are what they are. Max Egan kind of puts it beautifully always. He says, it's just playing out now. There's really no turning back from this. It is playing out. But a lot of you, a lot of us, I shall say, really have the clear guidance to not go into huge crowds, not go into very crowded places. For those of you who loved going to festivals and concerts and stuff like that, in the last years, a lot of you I know haven't felt like it at all. As a matter of fact, going into crowds might be a challenge. I'm an artist and songwriter. I'll be honest with you. I, I I like a crowd when I'm on stage. I don't like to be in a crowd. Now you ask Christine about it. That's a whole different story. She really doesn't like to be in crowds, but partially because the vibration and frequency in large crowds has become so low for the most part. Unless people gather for a specific purpose that kind of springs from higher consciousness, a movement, a protest in a positive way, then of course it's different. But if you just go into random crowded places, energetically speaking, it is very, very bad right now. And you also see these horrific, supposedly random acts of violence that have increased heavily over the last couple of years, more than ever before. And this erratic behavior, kind of a such an aggressive and a violent reaction to seemingly, small things. We see that, and people don't make the connection. These are soulless NPCs that react in that way. They're not real people. And that's why we see such a discrepancy in the behavior. And that's why people have the clear guidance to also move away. I think we have the biggest migration wave, short of course, the big migration waves coming into the United States in the past hundreds of years. But in this century, and probably even counting the 20th century, the movement of people between, in the United States, within people that are moving from one place to another, people that are leaving cities, moving out into the country, it is absolutely astonishing big. And it is to a large degree because they don't feel at home anymore, like they belong anymore. They can't relate to a group of people that they might be surrounded by. And often they don't realize it is because they are surrounded by a lot of backdrop people. It simply isn't, it's not a very pleasant thing because you're basically looking at empty shells, right? There's not much there. And I can't really speak to, a lot of people say, well, that's part of the simulation that we're in, right? If there was a simulation, if this is a simulation, let me put it that way, yeah, it would make sense that you have these fillers, these extras. Yes, certainly. But I think these extras are currently kind of being used and phased out at the same time. So when I talked about the zombification, I think the greatest trouble will probably come from large groups of such people that can be steered into erratic behavior. And because they now have so many access points to steer those people, steer those NPCs, that's why I think we're seeing some mass erratic behavior that is otherwise inexplicable. For us, or for people who do feel they have a spirit and they have a spiritual connection and they have a connection with the Creator and connection with God, it is very, very important to not get too invested in the drama that is unfolding, right? I always say we kind of have to keep our eye on the ball just a little bit and keep in touch with what's happening so we can make certain arrangements. Yes. But for the most part, it is really up to us to be really invested. Well, you hear that? That's Montana, our puppy in the background. It's really up to us to be invested more and more in this organic, beautiful timeline that we want to bring about. The NPCs, the backdrop people, will not be part of that timeline. I can promise you that, because there is no room for that, because it's not authentic. It's not real. And anything that isn't authentic or real cannot exist in an authentic, real, natural, divine timeline, right? So more and more people are stepping out of the artificial world, whether that's excessive use of technology, whether that's living in the cities where more and more things are being digitized and really becoming very, very artificial, on top of the concrete jungle that's already very artificial. So people feel that natural nudge, and it is really a time where we need to do the necessary inner work for this ascension process that we're in. Ascension simply means that we're leveling up. We're leveling up into a different frequency, and into a way of living that's going to feel very different, much lighter than it is now. It's not going to be as dense, as heavy, and the kind of violence and violent society that we have, inherently violent, I will say this, our communication, all of it is very aggressive and violent right now. We're ascending beyond that if we do the inner work. And the inner work means prayer and meditation. First and foremost, that is the main thing, because it daily reconnects us with the divine, and that there's no replacement for that. To have that introspection, you need to overcome the physical senses, which are the lowest form of perception for any being. Physical senses are the lowest form of perception. They're quite important. Don't get me wrong. You want to smell if there's gas in the air. You want to make sure that you can taste something that is harmful to your body. They are important, but they're the lowest senses, right? They give us the least amount of information out of all the senses that are available to us, which the higher you go into the third eye, you go into the, what's happening over there? Montana is roaming around. You go into the third eye, the pineal gland, which, we're going to talk about that a little more in a very near future here. As Frank Jacob has announced, his new webinar that's coming out on July 14th is actually exactly about that. He calls it the inner looking glass. And the activation of these higher senses that allow us to perceive reality in a much more comprehensive and more complex and in a more comprehensive, colorful, deeper sounds, deeper smells, everything. It just fills in all the missing pieces that our senses can't fill in. And as we're now in this transitioning period, and why I'm talking about these backdrop people, because some of us and some of you might even have relatives that are kind of like backdrop people. There's not much there. There's just not much substance there. And our deep, deep desire to help everyone and bring everyone along can be hindering and unhealthy. Really, it can be hindering and unhealthy. And I really want you to walk with that thought for a little bit, because you can't bring them along, because it might not be in their path. It might not be time for them quite yet. We're all, as much as we are creating a collective journey, we're also all on our individual paths of development, spiritual development, and you simply can't force anyone into it. There is no forcing someone into leveling up or into becoming something they cannot be, right? There's also, it's clear that that we cannot use violence, right? That we cannot use violence against those people, apart from having to defend ourselves if that happens. But we can't use offensive violence, because what that does is, if you use offensive violence where you go and offensively seek to hurt someone, the rate at which you're lowering your frequency and vibration is staggering, because that aggression and violence level, it's way down here on the scale. There's a frequency of vibration scale. If bliss and joy and peace and harmony are way up here, then violence, aggression, anger is way down here, and it can't be both at the same time. So it's a matter of spiritual development that you really shouldn't resort to violence and aggression towards people unless it's warranted, because you need to defend yourself. It also becomes a thing of, for parents, who do you trust your children with, right? Because they are the precious generation to come. The beautiful thing that the natives, the indigenous people of North America, have always said: we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And that's a much more beautiful way to look at it, I think. But for those of you who have younger children, school-age children, I remember that time. For us, it was a very conscious decision where we send our children to. Do we send them to school? What kind of school? Who are they spending time with? Where are they? What are they exposed to for longer periods of time? Today, more than ever, it's social media, it's internet, it's making sure that they are in an environment that is actually conducive to what you want them to become, right? Or conducive to their development. I don't think it's healthy for people to spend a lot of time with backdrop people that are simply tuned into a preset program. And again, I know this is controversial to say. If people would classify backdrop people and NPCs as a separate race, then you could call me racist. Sure, you could do that. But I believe that that which needs to be cultivated the most and that which is guiding the human story moving forward on this organic timeline is actually organic, natural, and people with a soul, people that actually possess the spirit. That's I think what is most important. One another thing that we notice is traffic of all things is where these NPCs are currently causing a lot of chaos. I mean, the amount of erratic behavior on roads that we've seen lately in the last months, it's just ever increasing. And again, especially in the cities and around the cities, it's becoming horrible. I don't even know how to describe it, but the level of you can't even call it driving. They're just frantically pushing a pedal and turning a steering wheel. It's not driving. All of these things were kind of predetermined. There's a scene in the fourth Matrix movie, which, by the way, I thought it was a mediocre movie at best. I didn't like it at all, to be honest. There's a scene in the Matrix movie, I think it's quite towards the end, where at the push of a button or sending out of a frequency, vast amounts of people react, right? Because they have been pre-programmed or equipped in a certain way, who knows, in certain ways, equipped, so they can later be steered accordingly. All of these things were kind of prophesized, and we kind of knew this was coming. It just the pieces, if you put them all together, that's what they all spell out. So we're seeing a perfect convergence of all of these factors that lead to one clear conclusion: that we need to take 100% responsibility for our lives right now, for the lives of our children, and take positive and constructive and co-creative action to create the new and move out of these highly destructive and highly violent systems right now. You don't want to live in a world with NPCs. You don't want to live in a world with backdrop people where they are the guiding mass force. It's just I don't want to, and I'm sure you don't want to. So in that, it also means that we have to withdraw from some of the relationships that are not working anymore. As a matter of fact, someone wrote us an email, I believe last week, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a woman who wrote us an email. Of course, I'm not going to mention names, but she says, "I think my husband is an NPC. I think my husband is a backdrop person. I didn't realize it before, but now I just see it so clearly. There's no spirit, there's no soul, there's just emptiness." And I mean, let's be honest. That's a shock if you realize it. That's kind of a shock, and people are saying, man, some people have even said this about their children. They're like, I don't know what happened, but they're there's just nothing there. And as I said, I do believe there are differences. We also have to realize that the way of life and the amount of influence from all areas, whether that's in a technological way or whether that's in a medical way, wherever you can influence the human being, it has all been aimed for the last hundreds of years at disconnecting you from your spirit. I mean, that's literally the aim of these forces, because those who are connected, those who feel a relationship with the creator, I'd rather die than comply. You have to understand that. I'm not saying those are the only two choices, death or compliance, but I'm saying before I live on my knees and say, please, please, and thank you, and whoever believes to be the authority, that's never going to happen. I have a spiritual connection. This is just a temporary experience, and I won't be a slave in this experience. Hell no, it's not. It's just not going to happen, right? So, for those of us who feel this deep connection, we are uncontrollable, literally uncontrollable. We will never do things that go against our moral compass, against our better judgment, against our values. Um, but there's a transitioning period that we are in. And in that, it's a balance between the co-creative part, between going into all these dark places and shining our light, and also withdrawing from other places, because it's kind of like a battlefield where we have no race in a horse. Let these NPCs take care of each other if they need to. I mean, let them do it, right? This is kind of the, sometimes you need to spell it out and also realize nothing changes overnight. The world doesn't change overnight. We're changing it in a meaningful way. But this transitioning period, it requires a lot of discernment, and you have to make judgment calls all the time. It's not like it used to be even 15 years ago. You have to make judgment calls all the time. Just say, no, like, I'm not doing this. I'm not communicating with this person. I'm withdrawing. I'm deleting them from my life. That has to be a choice, right? So kind of wanted to address that today, because I believe it's something that a lot of people don't have words for. They just notice that the relationships, the conversations, a lot of what's happening in the public arena has changed so drastically, and they don't know why. There's multiple reasons, but one of them is the clear visibility. The more you wake up to who you truly are, the more you see what isn't truthful and authentic. That's clear, right? The more you are true north on your compass, the more you realize everything that isn't. It's just everything is becoming so blatantly obvious. And it's almost like a cartoon in some ways. Like, if you watch clips, I mean, the person who identifies as the current president of the United States is a backdrop person. He's an NPC. I mean, that's like the definition of an NPC. The definition is just an empty vessel. Nothing there. Nothing there. So this discernment is necessary. These conversations are necessary. And this harsh truth is necessary. Nobody said the Great Awakening and this period, this transitioning period, was going to be easy, comfy, or breezy, or any of those chill words. It's not. It's, it sends us on the ultimate emotional roller coaster. And we are examining all our previous truths and realizing, well, we had it wrong. We have to change. We have to change how we look at the world. We have to change it, how we look at ourselves. And we have to be really, really honest. It's kind of the look in the mirror where you go, no more bullshit. I see the truth and I got to live up to it. I think this is the most important thing right now. We got to become really authentic and truthful with ourselves. And it's also the death of the ego. The ego won't help you, right? I mean, the ego might help you, in a live or die situation, kind of where it's a self-preservation. But for the most part, the ego is very much in the way, because this is a spiritual evolution and a spiritual revolution. So that's kind of it on the backdrop, people. And one of our friends and previous participants at the retreats, Christina and I do, said, you never say it like that, but you should actually tell people that the retreat that you guys are doing, it's all about evolving on the spiritual, authentic, organic, natural human timeline. And I said, I can't believe I haven't thought of that. Janae told us this. She said, that's how you have to, you have to tell people that's what happens there. It's really a spiritual evolution on that natural timeline. I said, it's so beautiful that you put it that way. I've never had the words for it, really. But I guess that's what we're doing. We're cultivating this natural timeline that we talk about, that Frank, Jacob, and I have talked about, and many others, and many are seeing it now. Many are seeing that's a timeline they want to be on. So just a quick word on that. I think we're halfway full. But if you feel like a deep shift experience might be in your near future, go check out the link in the description here for the YATO retreat that we're doing from October 5th through October 8th. We go deep. We do deep transformational experiences on a spiritual, physical, emotional level. We go into deep meditations. And really, like Janae said, we cultivate the natural, organic human timeline. That's what it's all about. And the beautiful thing is the connections that are made there, the friendships, the tribe connections. It's just beautiful. So information in a description. We haven't had NPCs there yet. They don't tend to come to these kinds of things, but we so look forward to this one coming up in October. I actually, I wish it would be here now, because of the expansion that happens over 4 days, 3.5 days. It's just, we can never fully anticipate how far we're going to expand because we don't ever fully know what the group will be like. But recently, in the past few, they were just amazing, just an amazing group of people that really showed up and was fully invested, fully there, 100%. There's really only two things that we ask of our participants when they come: is a, do you get 100% an inner yes to come to this retreat, because that's what's needed. 90% won't do 100. And the second thing is, you just can't be on any kind of mind altering drugs, legal or illegal. It doesn't work, and never works, never has, because these processes require people to be fully in touch with their emotional body, with their feelings, and that doesn't work with those drugs. So that's all. And if that speaks to you, if you feel like you want to be part of this experience, you're ready for a shift of energy, go check out the link in the description. See if that speaks to you. We'd love to have you. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay. TST or TEST probably came in late. Non-player character. That's what that stands for. Last but not least, before we log off, don't feel bad. Please don't feel bad about clarity that you gain on things. Don't feel bad about thinking, okay, that person is just a complete idiot. There's absolutely nothing that I could possibly communicate about with this person. Sometimes that's what it takes. Some people out there are just complete morons, complete idiots. They don't have a brain connection, they have a heart connection, and it's just the way it is. It sounds harsh, and call me out for my judgment here, but it's the truth. You had these experiences where you walked away and go, sometimes you meet people where you're just absolutely happy that you're going to spend the rest of your life apart from them. And that's kind of how that is. But those judgment calls, those discernment calls, they are important, because otherwise we get caught up in those stories. We get caught up in the wrong places. We waste time and energy, and we don't have time and energy to waste. We currently have this transformational energy window that's open, and we need to use it. You, us, all together, we need to use this energy windows, because they're not always open. It doesn't mean you can't always create change, but wouldn't you rather use some cosmic tailwind that pushes you forward, that gives you opportunities that usually aren't there? Wouldn't you rather use an expansion, a quantum leap expansion, rather than pushing hard? Right now we have that opportunity. The window is open. The energy window is ripe, but we have to use it. It will close, right? It will close, and many opposing forces are vying for this energy window because they know it too. They're using it too. It's up to us to take over, really take over, and get her done. Get her done, friends. All right, much love to you. Also, last but not least, thank you. 2 days ago, on July 3rd, I released my new song, Faith in Me. You can watch the video here. It's 2 videos down on this channel. Your comments, your reactions to the song, and many of you had no idea I was an artist and songwriter, have been all my life. They were so heartwarming, literally. It doesn't happen often. All our kids are involved. They all help. We all, this is an inspired family operation here. But, they just came back and said, did you read those comments? I'm speechless. And it rarely happens, but I was speechless reading the comments. How beautiful, how heartfelt, how, truthful, and how you were able to express what you felt listening to that song. Nothing could mean more to me. You go and if this turns #1 tomorrow and becomes the biggest hit commercially speaking, it wouldn't mean as much to me as having felt and read your words, your comments, what it did to you. Because my intention with this song, it's called Faith in Me, but my intention with this song was really for it to be our song, our story, because I believe it's our story. So many of you share this story that I sing about in this song, the journey. And I was just absolutely stunned. And I want to thank you again. I still keep reading through the comments. My heart is full. And we're just so blessed. Christine and I, our whole family, we're just so blessed to have such a wonderful tribe, such a wonderful extended family. Thank you. So much love to you all. Many blessings. We love you very, very much. And we'll be back with you again very soon.